Why are some people jealous and angry towards high level musicians or musicians that just attempt to make a living doing what they love? Let's talk about it. Hello, welcome to Tim Connolly Drums. Today, I want to discuss negativity among people towards musicians, either extremely successful musicians or even just a guy like me that makes a living working full time as a musician. Why is there this anger and this jealousy and whatnot against people that are usually extremely creative? Most musicians are kind and loving and wonderful people. I mean, there's always exceptions, just like any job. There's always going to be the good guy and the bad guy. Every job has that. But for the most part, in my experience, most musicians are very kind, loving, driven, and creative people. And why is it that people get angry at them about their drive? You should just quit. You should just give up, this kind of an attitude, and or actual jealousy towards them for the opposite approach, which is the high level of success. Now, one thing that I've always noticed is being a drummer and a drum teacher is a lot of people will go and they'll see a guy like Vinnie Colaiuta play, Dave Weckl, Steve Smith, Thomas Lang, Virgil Donati, Marco Miniman, all these great, great drummers. They'll go and see them play. They'll pay to see them play. And then they come away with this attitude of hopelessness. I'll never be able to play like that. I should just quit drums. I've seen it so many times in comments on videos. Thomas Lang made me quit drums. I'll never be able to do that. Well, who cares? I'll never play like Vinny. I'll never play like Dave Weckl. I'll never play like Steve Smith. None of these guys. I will never be able to play like them. And I know that and I accept that. But I turn to them because I've taken lessons with a few of those guys that I just mentioned. I turn to them for inspiration and try to learn from them. I know I can't play like Steve Smith, but I love the way Steve Smith plays, and I'm inspired by trying to learn from him. So rather than take the approach of, I'll never be able to play like Steve Smith, so I'm going to quit, my attitude is, I know that I'll never be able to play like Steve Smith, but I'm going to learn from him. And I'm going to take what he shows me, make it my own. So that is the key. Make stuff your own. And I'm going to tell you how you can make it your own. So I'll give you an example. Steve Smith gave me these paradiddle flam exercises to work on. And basically what you're doing is you're playing a flam at, on the downbeat, then the E, the and the of the beat. So you're cycling through the paradiddle and moving the flam as you're going along. Now, if there's a video of him actually sort of using this exercise in a performance and a drum solo, and he's flawless. It's so beautiful and flowing and everything to watch him. Now, I knew I can never do exactly what Steve does, and that's okay. What I did was I made it my own. I actually changed it a little bit. I worked on what Steve gave me. Then I made it into double strokes. Then I made it into single strokes. And then I made it into shorter phrases. Then I made it into longer phrases. I made it my own thing. So what I'm trying to say is, whatever you learn in your lessons, whatever instrument you're playing, you're not always going to be able to play it as good as the teacher or the guy that you see on stage or the drummer on YouTube. Rather than getting down about it, flip it to a positive and think, okay, I can't play like that exactly, but I can take his ideas and change it and use it and make it into my own thing and make it comfortable for me to play it. Another example is I can remember learning some not being taught this, I figured it out on my own, but 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover groove, Steve Gadd. And once I learned it and I nailed it down and everything was good and I played it as best as I could compared to Steve, who's the master, but then I would utilize it in other ways to make it my own thing. And I actually used it on some recordings, but it was my version of my interpretation. Another one is Manu Katché, Somewhere Down the Crazy River. That groove is killer. Love that groove. Worked hard to learn that groove. I had a lesson with Manu and I learned that groove, but then I changed it and made it into my own thing. It's the exact same idea. So that's what I encourage you to do. Take something that you learn it properly from the teacher, or at least to the best of your ability, learn it, and then take it, turn it into your own thing. That's the best way to approach that. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story, slightly off topic, but it will relate to the topic today. And that is a friend of mine who's also a drummer. He went and studied with David Garibaldi, awesome drummer from the band Tower of Power. Now, I've met David. I know David. I've never had a lesson with him, but I know him through Dom Famulero. And he's a great guy, fantastic drummer. He has a very unique approach to drum teaching that no other drummer really does. And what he does is, rather than showing you how to play Soul Vaccination, very famous Tower of Power song, or What Is Hip, or show you what he does is he inspires you through his lessons. Again, I'm not exactly sure how he does it, but through his teaching, he inspires you to unlock your own abilities to be able to be creative and come up with your own ideas. So rather than him showing you his ideas, his stuff, and all his ideas, he encourages you to unlock your own creativity through his ideas. So if we have, if he shows you how to play some kind of a funk groove, this is what I'm sort of guessing how he does it. He then, rather than you directly copying his groove, he'll get you to unlock some of your own ideas on how to play this groove and make it more interesting. And I know my friend that studied with him told me that David was very inspirational and very motivating for you, the student, to develop your own sound, your own feel, and whatever. So that leads me back to our topic. Why do people get angry at musicians who are extremely creative and are attempting to get what they feel is their sound and their creativity out? And you'll see it all the time. Now, when I'm going to talk about music critics. Now, not a music critic where he writes an article, and posts it online. That's not the kind of critic I'm talking about. I'm talking about this critic. Watch my microphone. The critic that sits at your show and gives you this look and is critical of your playing. And it happens everywhere. I even saw it at a recital for little kids where I don't know who exactly this guy was, or who he was related to, or even if he was related to one of the kids, I don't know. But it just blew my mind that a grown man is sitting at a kid's recital with this miserable look on his face, like, you better play good, or all these kids suck, or something like this. A lot of kids at recitals suck. It's true. It's true. But it's part of the learning process. And I encourage you to take a different approach when you view music, right from the kids' recital right up to frickin' watching Tool and amazing musicianship. My approach that I would like you to try to think about, rather than approaching things negatively, try to be positive and think about how difficult was it for that 8-year-old kid to overcome his fear of getting up in front of people and failing. How difficult was it for him to get up there, put himself out there in front of the public on stage, the lights on him, it's only him, or maybe he's in a band, or maybe he's at a recital and it is extremely personal. It's just him playing with a backing track, because that's what they do at the music school I work at. The recitals are always the student plays along with the song, and the song is a track, and he plays the drum part, or she. So rather than criticizing these kids and, being negative towards them and, oh man, that kid's off timing or he sucks or whatever, think about how hard it was for that kid to get up there and try to envelop a positive approach for this child. Even if they play terrible, you still clap, you still cheer for them, and you still say to them, good job. Now, that being said, as a teacher, if they're playing wrong, if they're doing something wrong, it's off time, fills off, the groove's not happening, they're playing really stiff, whatever, it's my job as the teacher to correct them. But I never correct them in a negative way, like, oh, what the hell are you doing? That's garbage. I never do that. What my approach is a positive thing. Okay, what you're doing is kind of neat, but let's try and do it better. So that's my approach. And I encourage you as a viewer to try and take that approach too. Now, you go and see Guns N' Roses or, Motley Crue or something like that, and the band has an off night, they don't play well. Well, all musicians are open to criticism at the professional level, whether you or not you enjoyed the show. That's a different thing. I mean, I went to a Van Halen show where the show was terrible because Eddie was drunk and he didn't play well. So I had legitimate reason to say I didn't really enjoy that show. That's not what I'm talking about. That kind of criticism is warranted, and I think it's viable, and all musicians need to hear that, because Eddie had to do better. He shouldn't be drunk at the show. He should be sober and ready to play. People are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars to see him, and he's a feature attraction in the band. He should have known better, but he's a rock star. And rock stars do these things, I can remember seeing the Stone Temple Pilots, and the lead singer, oh my God, he was just a mess. Off key, playing terrible, singing terrible. The band was playing well, but he did not sing well and do well at the show at all. And Ozzy as well. I went and saw Ozzy and with Black Sabbath, and Black Sabbath was awesome, but he sang terrible. But you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care. Ozzy sang terrible, but I was just happy to be there and see him. So why is it then that people take a negative approach? Is it jealousy? Is it internal rage that they want to be the one that's actually on stage? Why is he up there and why isn't it me? Is it also jealousy from the point of view of they're making a lot more money than I am? Here I am working a minimum wage job or something. Why can't I be the rock star? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Anyone that I've ever known that's been successful at anything, not just music, extremely successful, is driven. Drive is the reason for success. Now, talent obviously plays into it. I'm not denying that. But the reason that a lot of people get talented at something is repetition. They practice their ass off. Also, there's an element of natural ability. Let's be honest. Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, Buddy Rich, Dennis Chambers, these guys are all naturals. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Phelps, they obviously were born in some ways to do what they did. There's no doubt about that. But they also trained their asses off and practiced like crazy to get to the level that they were at, which was at the top of the level. I can remember reading some stuff about Michael Jackson and how much he practiced. Now, he was driven, but he was also driven by his father and his brothers. But then later, when he went off on a solo career, Michael Jackson and Prince and James Brown three of the hardest working men in Hollywood, or not Hollywood, but in the music industry. Those guys used to practice. Prince would practice up to 12 hours a day some days with his band to get things perfect. So if you're willing to put the time in, you can succeed, but you have to be willing to put the time in. I feel for me that I used to practice 8 to 10 hours a day when I was in music school. Now, after music school, obviously the practicing went way down. I hardly practice at all now. I only practice to prepare for performing, but I've been playing for almost 53 years, and I've studied, taken, hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of drum lessons. And I can just pull the stuff out that I need, and I don't feel the need, or do I have the time to practice as much as I used to. But when I was developing and trying to get into this career, well, I knew that I had to be good. It blows my mind when you see the critics are the same guys that are too lazy to put the time in. They're too lazy to want to get out there and play. Also, they're nervous. They criticize other people for getting on stage, but they won't get on stage because they don't want to be criticized. They know that what they're doing is toxic, but they don't want to be the guy that has the finger pointed at them by another toxic guy. And I say that is hogwash. If you're the critic, you're the guy that should be getting up there, then let's see you do it better. I know on my own channel on YouTube here, I get a lot of really great and positive, wonderful comments. I've got a great following, a lot of great subscribers. A lot of the same guys comment on my videos, and I really sincerely appreciate that. And I thank you, and I thank you dearly. But there's always a few people, even subscribers, that are the negative ones. They got to put the negative spin on it. I could talk for 20 minutes about something. They focus on one element of what I'm talking about that maybe I talked about for 5 seconds. I may have said somebody's name wrong. I may have, I'll give you an example. I did a review or a reaction to Chad Smith playing a Drumeo song. I can't remember the name of the band right now, but Chad was playing. While he was playing, he either broke or dropped his stick. I can't remember. And I think that I said the stick was broken, but he actually dropped it, or the other way around. I can't remember exactly. I couldn't tell you how many people commented focusing on the fact that I made a mistake. Now, the interesting thing was I went back and checked it. Now, here's the interesting thing. He actually, I think, did both. I think he dropped the stick and it broke, or he broke it and then he dropped it. That's probably what happened, because I've done that 1,000 times myself. So we were both correct, but it made me laugh that people focused on the fact that, oh, he didn't break the stick, he dropped it, or he didn't drop the stick, he broke it, whatever. It's these minor, small, little bullshit things that people focus on. Who gives a crap? People are going to make mistakes in their reactions, but the mistakes, that is so trivial that it doesn't matter. But there's always that one guy that's going to come on there and point out your faults. And another point is, you'll be talking and talking and talking, and it's all positive, but they'll still find a negative in your positivity. So my advice to you is, don't let those kind of people infiltrate your world. And if you're performing and you get that negativity, which I've had so many times, that guy in the front row staring at you, all angry, wanting to see if you're any good, or they watch you play for 5 minutes and they don't know anything about you. I'm better than him. Why is he up there? I could be up there. I should be up there. I'm better than him. It's all nonsense, those people. I dismiss them. Another thing on my channel, I dismiss people who are extremely negative. If you have a different opinion than me, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But if you are negative, if you attack my commenters, if you attack me or you attack anyone involved with my channel, well, I'm not going to tolerate that. And I just block those people. And that's what I do in my life too. I get rid of the people in my life that create a lot of problems for me. And I've done that, and I'm a lot happier in the end doing that. So don't let these people that are going to try and break you down and say, you're not that great on the drums. And, I can remember one time being in a music store. I ran into a guy that I know. I'm not going to name him. And he, hey, how you doing, Tim? And all this sort of stuff. And then we're talking, and another guy in the store says, oh, Tim was just studying with Zorro the drummer. And he looks at me and goes, oh, you've been taking some lessons with Zorro the drummer? He's Lenny Kravitz's drummer and famous funk drummer. And I love the way Zorro plays. He's awesome. And I enjoyed the lessons. Anyways, he says, well, why would you study with him? So I tell him, well, this is why. And I outline, all the things that Zorro brings to the table and why I was interested in learning from him. Oh, you should have went and studied with David Garibaldi. I studied with David Garibaldi. Now, I don't know if he's telling me the truth or not. Maybe he did. Maybe he took a lesson with David Garibaldi. That's great. Good for him. I'd love to have a lesson with David Garibaldi. But David Garibaldi lives in California. Online lessons are okay. I have no problem with them. And I would take an online lesson with David Garibaldi. But this was my trip to Nashville to study with Zorro. And I have a video about my trip to Nashville. Check that out, because that was crazy, that trip. But the negativity towards me, why would you study with Zorro? You should have studied with David Garibaldi like me. As if to say that one is necessarily better than the other in terms of what you want to learn. Now, like I said, I love David Garibaldi, but I love Zorro. Zorro was accessible. He made sense. He wasn't ridiculously expensive. He gave me a decent price. I went right to his home, and it was easy. And I enjoyed the lessons, and it was fantastic. And, everybody's got their choice. My favorite drummer is Neil Peart, but maybe your favorite drummer is Dave Weckl. Maybe your favorite drummer is the new drummer for Slipknot. I can't remember his name. Eli something, or Casa. I can't remember his name. But, everybody has an opinion. And sometimes the positivity and the glow of people can be shot down by negative people who are always critical. I encourage those of you that are very critical and might even be critical on this particular video to think from a different perspective for a change. Instead of focusing on one small little thing, like I forgot the name of somebody, let's just say, focus on the entire message of what I'm trying to say here. The positivity and the joy of listening to music and seeing great musicians, that has to stand out above criticism of the musicians. Like, so many musicians get criticized, and when we put ourselves out there and we know we're going to get criticized, it's no big deal. But sometimes the criticism is just unwarranted. I think that's the whole message of this video. Sometimes the criticism, the negative criticism, is just unnecessary. It comes from a negative place of jealousy, a place of insecurity, and a place of, I'm just not good enough to be like that guy. So I encourage those people that generally like to lash out. I encourage you to think from a different perspective. Think about how much work this guy put in to get to the level he's at. Think about how much he went through in his life to get to this level. Think about how much effort has been put into study, how much money has been put out to go to music school, let's just say, if he went to music school, and how much time was spent learning and mastering their craft. And think about it from that perspective. And then maybe you can actually enjoy the concert and enjoy the performer more. Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining me today. I try to put a positive spin on things because the world can be a cruel, cruel place. YouTube can be a very cruel place. And I'm trying to change things one video at a time. That's all I can do. And I will encourage you to comment and, give me your opinion on what I've said today, and let me know the positive and the negative. And like I said, if you got a different opinion than me, that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with people not necessarily agreeing with everything I say. That's the way the world goes, yin and yang. Thanks very much for watching. And as always, keep drumming. See ya.